Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata Cha Pita Twameva Twameva bandhuscha sakha Twameva Twameva vedya dravinam Twameva Twameva sarvam mama deva deva Twameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we are still in the 6th chapter, and I think we're wrapping up the last half a dozen or so verses, if I'm not mistaken. Mark, do you know where we are?
We're on 285.
285. Ganesh, can you help us out, please?
ब्रह्मलोक कर्तृणीकारो वैराग्यस्य वर्धिमतः ब्रह्मलोकर्तृणीकारो वैराग्यस्य वर्धिर्मतः देहात्मवत्परात्मात्व देहात्मवत्परात्मात्वदाढ्यः बोधसमाप्यते. The height of detachment is such a conviction of the futility of all desires that one considers like straw even the highest pleasures of the world of Brahma. And the height of spiritual knowledge is reached when one feels one identity with the Supreme Self as firmly as an ordinary man instinctively feels his identity with the physical body.
So the ordinary person instinctively feels, I am this lump of meat. But the precondition to sthita prajna, steady wisdom, is this intense spirit of detachment, of renunciation, the pinnacle of vairagya, to abandon this world. This means not only all the people, places, things, and conditions, but relationships, family, and in the end, even the scripture, concerns for spiritual mind states, the guru, the shishya, all of it gone. I give up this world completely. The fruit of vairagya is effortless and easy abidance of the mind and the sound. So simple. Not easy, but simple. To give up all sense of struggle, all sense of becoming, achieving, acquiring, accumulating, even noble things, all of it. Oh, like a dead man. Why? Because the person of steady wisdom sees the illusory nature of it all. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Suptivad vismriti seema bhavedu paramasya hi dishanaya vinishcheyam tarat taratmyam taratmyam avantaram taratamyam avantaram. The height of withdrawal from action is the complete forgetfulness of all worldly affairs in the waking state, as in the state of deep sleep. There are several intermediate grades which can be known by actual observation.
Yes. So here he's probably going to reference some of these post-enlightenment samadhis, we call them. So there's a very famous section, famous to me, anyway, one of my favorite sections in a little book called The Spiritual Teachings of Ramana Maharshi. And it's all questions and answers. And this one disciple asks Bhagawan, which of the 7 stages of knowledge does the jnani belong? Bhagawan says the 4th. Very clear if you read Yoga Vasishta, the Sapta Jnana Bhumikas. And then the disciple says, if that be true, then why have 3 others superior to it and enumerated by the scripture? And Bhagawan says, these are not stages of bondage and release. They have to do with the experiences of the realized person. And they are not to be acquired by mere will or effort. If you're making efforts to achieve these states, you're not even a jnani yet, because you're still caught up in, I want to achieve this state. And what is their cause? Punya, from past lives. How much of the world one actually perceives, how deeply into the self the mind retires. God's grace. Next verse.
Arabdhakamananatvad buddhanamanyatha vartanam tena shastrarthe pramitavyam na panditaihi. Enlightened men may differ in their behavior because of the nature of their fructifying karma. This should not make the learned think otherwise about the truth of knowledge resulting in liberation.
Yes. So, what is the mark of the person of steady wisdom, the liberated soul? They know they are Brahman, and they know the body mind intellect is essentially a dream-like projection of the mind. They have no concern how it shows up. Just like the ordinary person is not concerned if his shadow is 30 feet long in the afternoon or just 6 inches at noon. So also for the person of steady wisdom has no concern for the robot. Let it fulfill its prarabdha in this world. Now, for those who look at the person of steady wisdom, the ignorant can have judgments about them. Oh, so and so doesn't seem to be very enlightened. He seems like a rascal to me. And someone can be a goody-goody, a very good person, and not know the self. So you can't really tell by a person's external behavior. But one person of knowledge can recognize enough. Oh, that person has the taste. That person's mind has retired into the self. Next verse.
Jagat Chitram Swachaitanye Pate Chitramivarpitam Mayaya Tadupakshaiva Chaitanyam Parisheshyatam. On the supreme consciousness, the world is drawn like a picture on canvas. Oh, sorry, May. I think I missed a verse. Sorry.
Yeah.
स्वस्वकर्मानुसारेण वर्तन्तां ते यथा तथा अविशिष्टः सर्वबोध समामुक्तिरिति स्थितिः. Let the enlightened people behave in any way according to their fructifying karma, but their knowledge is the same and their liberation is the same.
Yes. So you can't tell. Some are given the gift of being teachers. Some take sannyas and take up the orange cloth. Others are just housewives or work in a factory or a farmer. Or like Nisargadatta Maharaj, who sold cigarettes at a little smoke shop that he ran. You can't tell from the outside. You can't tell from what kind of blah, blah, blah they have. First of all, we shouldn't be particularly concerned about other people's mind states. That is a fruitless quest. We can only do our own yoga. No one else, no matter how great they are, can do our yoga for us. So, for example, if we look at that section at the end of the second chapter of Gita, very famous Stita Prajna Purusha section, the marks of the person of steady wisdom. This is for us to be checking out our own sadhana, not to measure other people. Next verse.
Jagat-chitram swachaitanye pate chitramivarpitam mayaya tadupekshaiva chaitanyam parisheshyatam. In the Supreme Consciousness, the world is drawn like a picture on canvas. Thus is Maya superimposed on consciousness. When we forget the adventitious distinctions, consciousness alone remains.
Yes. So forget the superimpositions. Have no concern for them. Abide as Brahman, as the witnessing consciousness, as Kutastha, as Vidyaranya likes to call it. And don't worry about the body. It will fulfill its role in the tapestry of life. It'll get its allotted dose of successes and failures, praise and censure. You have no involvement. Person of steady wisdom, their actions are simply guna and karma, the qualities of the mind and the force of the past. Radha. Next verse.
Chitradipamimam nityam yenusandhate buddhaah pashyantopi jagat chitram te muhyanti na purvavat. This chapter, called the lamp of the picture, when regularly studied, gives an intelligent aspirant freedom from the delusion due to elusive appearances, even though he may see them as before.
Yes. So is that the last verse of this chapter?
Yes.
Yes. So he brings the conclusion, all this world is like the lamp, the picture. It's just a hologram, virtual reality. Let it go. Shut up and get out, Swamiji would thunder. Sarvamaya, Sarvamananda. It's all Maya. It's all this. All right. Now we make our way into the 7th chapter.
Saptamodhyayah, Tripti Deepa, the lamp of perfect satisfaction. Chapter 7. Atmanam chet vijinaya ayamasmiti purushah kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. When a man, Purusha, has realized the identity of his own self with the Paramatman, desiring what and for whose sake should he allow himself to be afflicted following the body's affliction?
Yes. So here we're going to start to look at the whole teaching around happiness and pleasure. So again, Vedanta asks us, what does it feel like to want something you don't have? It takes two forms: raga, my passion for something; dvesha, my aversion of something. And then I call it the neurotic form, bhaya, fear. I have what I want, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose. Vedanta says, can you find any other kind of suffering? And then we look at what we call the mediated experience of the cessation of that longing, and the non-mediated. The mediated form is when I satisfy a desire. It's the kama itself that hurts. Desire and object of desire become one. I get a momentary respite, some relief from that restlessness, that discontent. And in my ignorance, I think the person, place, thing, or condition did it. That's called the Anandamaya Kosha. We experience it in two ways: when we satisfy a desire and in deep sleep. All my suffering is gone bye-bye in deep sleep. So, Vedanta thunders, it is the extroversion of the mind that is my suffering. Then the Buddha asked, is there a way to be permanently free from suffering? Marga Satya, the truth of the road, the path. Yep. So all of this is summed up in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 55. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then he's said to be a person of steady wisdom, Sthita Prajna. There is the teaching. So a person who knows Chidananda Rupaha, my form is bliss consciousness. Why should I engage in this neurosis of going after the world? Cray. There is no more fruitful meditation than to keep in mind this understanding of suffering and happiness. It was the first turning of the wheel of Dharma of the Buddha. I find it so interesting. I'll talk to people who practice Buddhism, and I say, what's your take on the Four Noble Truths? Oh, I can't remember what they are. And the whole path makes no sense if you don't internalize the first teaching of the Buddha, which which is foundational to Vedanta. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Now, Maya is so powerful. I can hear this. My meditation seed, I can be a Mahatyagi, great abandoner of. And then 2-3 hours later, where I'm at work, gone. No more Shanti. It all seems so real. Next verse.
अस्याः श्रुतेरभिप्रायः सम्यगत्र विचार्यते जीवन्मुक्तस्य या तृप्तिः सा तेन विशदायते. In this chapter, we exhaustively analyze the meaning of this Shruti. Thereby, the perfect satisfaction of a man liberated in this life will be clearly known.
Now, I don't know from what Shruti text that quote is taken. Is it footnoted in either of your versions?
No, but the previous verse is saying something about Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So I don't know.
That's probably where this is taken from then. So what he's doing is he's explaining this idea of satisfaction that is set forward in Brihadaranyaka, and that's his basis for the next part of the chapter. All right, going on.
मायाभासेन जीवेशौ करोतीति श्रुतत्वतः कल्पितावेव जीवेशौ ताभ्यां सर्वं प्रकल्पितम्. The Shruti says that Maya reflecting Brahman creates both Jiva and Ishvara. Jiva and Ishvara in their turn create the whole of the rest of the universe.
So this is the frame that Vidyaranya likes to put forward, and it's a good one. So we have Maya, the inherent power of consciousness, which creates macrocosm and microcosm. Macrocosm, Ishvara, the Lord of creation. Brahmaji, the creator God. And in that creation is this Chidabhasa, this reflected consciousness, which is the Jiva, the apparent feeling that I'm an entity, that I'm a personal being. Ishvara creates the entire universe, supernovas and black holes and galaxies, as well as every grain of sand and a neutron and an electron and a neutrino. These are essentially neutral. And the Jiva, with the individual mind, has its projections. I like sunrises. I don't like it when it's gloomy and cloudy. I like so and so. Oh, I don't like such and such. I hope they don't win the presidency. I like it when people are peaceful. Oh, I'm so upset that there is war. This is my mind's superimpositions on Ishvara's universe, which has no affect. So those two things are going on at the same time. Now, Ishvara is not some entity up there in the sky creating the world at us and to us. When we have our discussion of Mandukya Upanishad, we go deeply into this understanding of the total mind, Hiranyagarbha. We understand that the whole world is being created not at us and to us, but as us and through us. It's this huge multi-dimensional projection project. Every single little mind is manifesting part of the creation. Just like we can't say the images on the carpet are different from the individual threads that make it up. So we also participate in the universe as well as being subject to it. Next verse.
ईक्षणादिप्रवेशान्ता सृष्टिरीशेन कल्पिता जागृदादिविमोक्षान्तः samsaro jiva kalpita. From the determination of Ishvara to create down to his entrance into the created objects is the creation of Ishvara. From the waking state to ultimate release, the cause of all pleasures and pains is the creation of jiva.
Yes. So Ishvara just creates the world. What do I create? My little individual zoo of pleasures and pains, and ultimately liberation. The human mind is the cause of suffering, and the human mind is the cause of liberation. That's the way the Lord set the whole thing up. Next verse.
So, Jim, in this frame, Ishvara doesn't create the jiva.
Yes, Ishvara creates the jiva, but jiva has a function. I mean, it's all of these are maps, not territory, so it's hard to parse it. But my take on the whole thing is this thing called Jim's body, mind, intellect ultimately has its origin in Ishvara, but it has a relative independence.
Got it.
It is going through a process. The best example I've been able to find is, so the Lord creates a river. It starts high up in the mountains, but it moves through time and space to the sea. That's what it does. So the jiva evolves through time and space, responding to where the heck is the good. We've talked about the dharma of the human mind. It's a pleasure seeker, pain avoider mechanism. That's the very mechanism that brings us home to God. It just takes lifetimes to get there. But is it Ishvara's doing? Is it the individual? Is the individual separate from Ishvara? Not really. This is just a distinction that I think Vidyaranya is making to try to make things a little clearer to understand.
Okay, got it.
Where does the jiva stop and Ishvara begin? Well, basically, the jiva doesn't even really exist. It's imagined. You know, it's like the reflection in a mirror. Later on, Vidyaranya is going to use the term chidabhasa. Abhasa means a reflection, the reflection of consciousness. I like to use the example of the little hand mirror. Even in class, I'll use it to shine it in people's faces. Is there a light in the mirror or not? Well, kind of yes, kind of no. It certainly has an illuminating property. I, Jim, can see the table. I, Jim, am seeing the room in a different viewpoint than Nilan. But I wouldn't get too hung up on it. And maybe I'm totally misunderstanding it. You never know. All right, going on.
Okay. There is a letter missing. Okay, let me see. Okay. Brahmadhishtana bhutatma kutastha sangachit vapuhu anyonyadhyasato sanga adhistha jivotra purushah. The substratum of illusion is Brahman, the immutable, associationless, pure consciousness, the self of all beings. When through mutual superimposition, Brahman becomes associated with the intellect, an association which is phenomenal and not real, he is known as Jiva or Purusha.
Yes, Purusha here means the person, Jiva, the individual. Again, I don't like to use that term. This is Vidyaranya. I prefer to use the term Jiva Bhavana. That's what Gaudapada uses. Jiva Bhavana means the attitude or feeling that I'm a person. Because is the body in your dream a real body? No. It's the feeling that I have a body that occurs in the dream. So here, Vidyaranya has used a technical term, anyonya adhyasa, mutual superimposition. This happens in the subtle intellect. It is the result of spiritual ignorance. So the first imposition is I superimpose upon myself the qualities of the not self. I think I am the body, I am the feelings, I am the thoughts, I am ahankriti, the ego notion. And then I superimpose upon the not self the qualities of the self. Self is Satchidananda. So I think the couch has Sat existence apart from me, or I think the body has existence. Chit I look across the room and I see Nilang, and I think he's a conscious being, separate from me. Or I think my mind is conscious. The consciousness is a possession. Then I superimpose Ananda out there. I love pizza. That's where Ananda is. Oh, I love getting a good massage. That's where Ananda is. So this is called Anyonya Adhyas, mutual superimposition. And this is what the intellect does. I superimpose upon the self the qualities of the not self, and I superimpose upon the not self the qualities of the self. All of this we can call the Vikshepa Shakti, the projecting power, which has as its cause Avarana Shakti, veiling power, avidya, ignorance, the result of Maya. And this is the state of ignorance that causes me to grunt and sweat over a weary life. I'm caught in what the scriptures call kartavya, obligatory action. I'll be happy when it'll be better, if more better, different. Gimme, 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 gimme. And it's cause this anyonya adhyasa, mutual superimposition. All right, next verse.
Sadhisthano vimokshado jivodhitriyate natu kevalo niradhisthana vibhrante kvapya siddhita. Jiva with Kutastha as his substratum becomes an agent and seeks liberation for the pleasures of heaven and earth. Chidabhasa, the reflection of pure consciousness, alone cannot be so, for superimposition is not possible without a substratum.
Yes. So, what do we mean by superimposition? The classic one is the snake and the rope. First, there is a substratum, the rope. Then there's the superimposition, the snake. Superimposition is not real, it is imagined. It's a misunderstanding. It's illusion based in delusion. Mirage waters in the desert. There is a substratum. Heat waves off the sand. I superimpose what looks like water. Superimposition. There's a substratum that's there. So what he's saying, for superimposition to take place, there has to be a substratum. So the substratum of the jiva is the kutastha, is the self itself. So, things to understand. You are. Sees the phone. That's yourself. Well, it's my ego, isn't it? Is it? First, there's the substratum. Aham. I. Then there's the superimposition on top of that. I'm Jim, or I'm Mark, or Nilam. I'm this body. I have these qualities, and I don't have those qualities. I'm successful here, and I did a bad job there. And I'm limited. All of that is nothing but jiva bhavana, ideas of self, ahankriti, I maker thoughts, thoughts that create a false sense of I, this chid abhasa. Abhasa means reflection of consciousness. And that is superimposed on something that's real. I. What do we need to do then? How do I rediscover the rope? I investigate. Oh, but the snake is so scary. Don't worry, dude. It's not there. Well, you're right. It's just a rope. I can't drive any further. There's a lake. Keep going. Don't worry. Oh my gosh, the lake is receding. It's a mirage. Yeah. Thin out the mind. And this jiva bhavana starts to thin out. And with the attentive faculty turned within, I begin to get intimations of what's there, the substrat. Chidananda Rupa. Shivoham, Shivo. There is no entity called the jiva. It is imagined. There is no real being called me, the dreamer. I don't put him in the closet during the day and bring him out at night and stick him in my head. The sense that I'm in the dream is adhyasa. It's a superimposition. It's a hallucination. Next verse.
अधिष्ठानांश संयुक्तं ब्रह्मांशम् अवलम्बते यदा तदाहं संसार इत्येवं जीवोऽभिमन्यते. When Jiva, having the immutable Kutastha as his basis, wrongly identifies himself with the gross and subtle bodies, he comes to think of himself as bound by the pleasures and pains of this world.
So, in the subtle intellect, in the Vijnana Maya Kosha, that's where this superimposition takes place, where I attribute to the self the qualities of the not self. First comes the ignorance, the non-apprehension of myself as Brahman. Then the subsequent misapprehension, I think I'm the body. And then it needs to be satisfied. It has relationships with an external world. I must have that, and I've got to get rid of this, and I have fear about losing such and such. And I develop attachments. And they get thicker and thicker and thicker. Or I indiscriminately revel with the objects of the senses. Like the silkworm spinning its cocoon. It's the image that Shankara uses. Each vasana is part of my bondage. Remember, we frequently will think of vasana as, oh, I have this attachment, I have this desire. But pure vasana is ignorance. The first power of the vasana is the non-apprehension of myself as Brahman. That's its terrible power. Next verse.
ब्रह्मांशस्य तिरस्कारात् अधिष्ठानप्रधानता यदा तदाचिदात्माहम् असङ्गोऽस्मीति बुध्यते. When Jiva gives up his attachment to his illusory portion, the nature of the substratum becomes predominant, and he realizes that he is associationless and of the nature of pure consciousness.
So, Vairagya has two dimensions: that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses, and that desire to give up identification with any form of self. The two aspects. And as I let go, go, then the mind starts to be able to come home more and more easily. Retire into the self. Frequency, duration, greater depth. That's what he's talking about. When a man casts off all the desires of the mind, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, Atmanamana, and is said to be Sthita Prajna. Next verse.
नासङ्गेऽहं कृतिर्युक्ता कथमस्तीति चेत् शृणु एको मुख्यो द्वावमुख्याव एको मुख्यो द्वावमुख्या अविद्यर्थः त्रिविधोऽहमः. Doubt. How can the idea of egoity arise in the detached kutastha? You have to attribute egoity to it. Reply. I is used in three senses, of which one is primary and the other two secondary.
Yes. So here our doubter is all confused about how is it that the self can have egoism. Is the jiva a real entity that's created by Ishvara? And if I see the Mahatma speaking with egoity, does that mean he's not realized? This used to really bother me. So we'd be at dinner at a camp and be sitting near Swamiji. Pass me the chutney. He used ego. So here Vidyaranya is basically going to say, you don't have to talk funny. The man of wisdom can use the language of egoity in his vyavahara, worldly transactions. But inside he knows Chidananda Rupa, the form of bliss consciousness. Just like I can say the sky is blue today, and I know no one has painted the sky blue. Just like I can say, oh, look at the color of the clouds at sunset. The clouds have not been painted. Oh, look at that huge cruise ship dropping below the horizon. No, it's the curvature of the earth. Oh, look at the stars twinkling tonight. No, the stars are not twinkling. It's just the distortion of the atmosphere. All the time we say things for convenience. Now, there are some schools of Zen monks who will refer to the body as this one. They will not say, I'm going to the store. They'll say, this one is going to the store this morning. You can do that if you want. But you know, if you know you are Brahman, or sometimes. Next verse.
अन्योन्याध्यासरूपेण कूटस्था भासयोर्वपुः एकीभूय भवेन्मुख्य तत्र मूढैः prayujyate. The immutable Kutastha becomes identified with the reflected intelligence, Chidabhasa, due to mutual superimposition. This is the primary meaning of I in which the spiritually dull people use it.
So people who are trying to explain it as an intellectual concept will speak in terms of the self being identified, that the self becomes the reflection of consciousness, that there's some ontological problem with the self. This is not what really happens. Even though the scriptures can be made to imply that. The truth is, the jiva itself is an unreal imagination created by Maya. It is insentient. You are sentience itself. Going on.
पृथक् पृथगाभासकूटस्थ अवमुख्यो तत्र तत्त्ववित् पयायेण प्रयुङ्क्तेऽहं शब्दं लोके च वैदिके. I in the two secondary senses refer to either Kutastha or Chidabhasa, but one is differentiated from the other. The wise use the same word I, either in the worldly or in the philosophical sense, meaning Chidabhasa or Kutastha, respectively.
So the person of steady wisdom can speak like an ordinary person. I'm going to the store this morning. I went to a concert yesterday. That's his chidabhasa, that's his vyavahara, his transactional use of the word I. But his philosophical use of the word I go nowhere. The world passes in front of me. I am kutastha, still and immovable. You will use both, depending on the circumstance. Next verse.
Laukika Yavahareham Gacchamityadike Buddha Vivicyaiva Chidabhasam Utasthatam Vivakshati. From the conventional standpoint, the wise use the expression I'm going, meaning Chidabhasa, differentiating it from Kutastha.
So here he's saying, again, like I said earlier, you don't have to talk funny. You come to work with a coat and tie, when you usually come to work in jeans and a t-shirt. Someone says, oh, you're dressed up today. And you go, I'm formal today. I'm going to dinner after work. You are formal or you are dressed formally. Yeah. Shorthand expressions all the time. That's his point. Don't get caught up in literalism here around language. You know, if you understand, if you know who your real nature is. Now, understand both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is not touched by either. The self is already liberated, already free. Both bondage and liberation occur in Maya. Well, they're not real. Why should I bother to do this? Because in the world of Maya, in this long dream of worldly existence, ignorance sucks. And I would like some respite. That's why I'm driven toward moksha, liberation. Next verse.
Asangoham chidatmaham iti shastriya drishtitah aham shabdam prayukteyam utasthe kevale buddha. From the philosophical standpoint, the wise mean by their I the pure Kutastha. In this sense, they say, I'm unattached, I'm the spirit itself.
Asangoham, asangoham, asangoham puna punaha, satchidananda rupaham, aham evaham avyayaha. Very, very famous line. Unattached, unattached, unattached am I again and again. My form is pure existence, consciousness, bliss absolute. I am that I am. That's the philosophical knowledge of the person of study. Here he's kind of riffing on Shankar. All right, one more.
Jnanita jnanite tvatman bhasasyaiva na chatmanah tatha cha kathamabhasah kutasthosmiti buddhyatam. Doubt. Wise or ignorant are terms that can be applied to Chidabhasa and never to Kutastha. Then how can Chidabhasa, who is different from Kutastha, say I am Brahman or Kutastha?
All right. I think we'll save this for next week because it's a little bit of gnarly discussion stuff. So we'll repeat this verse next week. What's the number of it again?
14.
We'll start with 14 again next week and we'll end a little bit early. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.